Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week here at MMA Junkie, we take a spin through the biggest headlines in the sport. This week, we've got Matthew Wells from the great state of Texas, along with Danny Segura down in Florida, and gorgeous George Garcia joins me right here in Las Vegas. So let's just jump right into it, guys. This past weekend saw Marina Rodriguez announce herself as a contender in the UFC strawweight division with an impressive win over Mackenzie Dern at UFC Fight Night 194. Now, Rose Namajunas and Zhang Weili will fight on November 6th. Carla Esparza is currently waiting to take on the winner, unless, of course, the UFC goes the trilogy route with Namajunas and Weili. So if you're Rodriguez right now, what do you do? Do you sit around and wait? Is there another name that makes sense? How should the UFC handle this division right now? Let's put 4 minutes on the clock. Matt, get us started.
I think the best option for Marina Rodriguez, by the way, fantastic performance, by the way, right? I think the best option for her is to not wait too long. Keep your name out in the headlines and start calling out one former champion in Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I don't know what Joanna's plans are for the future, but hey, that's the matchup for me that makes the most sense. That's the one that Mike Bohn put on his matchmaker piece, if you guys have not checked that out yet, but that's the one that makes the most sense for me. Listen, you're not going to get a title shot just yet because Carla Esparza is more deserving. You even acknowledge that much if you're Marina Rodriguez. So that's the fight that needs to take place. I don't know if the UFC is keen on it. I don't know if Joanna Jędrzejczyk is keen on it. But for me, since the title picture seems a little bit crowded right now, and like you said, John, that impending trilogy is a possibility depending on how that fight plays out. You got to take a fight, and that's the one that makes the most sense for me.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Marina kind of saying that Carla deserves it. I thought that was very respectful and great sportsmanship, but it's like, oh no, what are you doing? You got to give yourself a little leverage to use there. But yeah, I agree. I love the idea of a fight with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, but you touched on it there. I just don't know what Joanna is planning to do in the future right now. So hopefully that's something she's up to, because I think stylistically it would be a great fight, but she seems to be saying title shot or nothing for me. So I don't know if Marina can wait for that. Danny, what do you think? How should this thing be played out?
I love that fight against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. If it was an ideal situation, no politics, if you can just, put whatever fight you wanted together, I think that'd be an amazing fight at 115 pounds. However, there are conflicting interests there that probably won't allow for that fight to happen, at least for now. But if I were Marina, I'd just keep pushing for that fight. You either get it or you get the boogie woman of 115 pounds avoiding you. So, it's a win-win, I think, and obviously still get her name out in the headlines and whatnot. Something also interesting that I'd like to throw out there. I just spoke earlier in this week to Carla Esparza, who's considered by many the number one contender in that division. And I told her, she thinks she's next in line. A lot of people think as well. Marina Rodriguez also thinks she's next in line. So I told her, would you be willing to serve as a backup backup replacement for that UFC 268 title fight between Rose Namajunas and Zhang Weili? And she's like, nope. It took me 7 years to get here. I'm 34. I deserve a proper training camp. They can do their own thing. I'm going to get the next title shot, but I don't want to be like this sort of backup role. So look, if I were Marina Rodriguez, I'd throw my name out there to be a backup role. There's injuries. We know MMA's plagued with them. And then you add the COVID layer. I'm not saying there's an extremely good chance she might get a title fight, but you never know. So I'd throw my name in there as well. I don't know. Just an idea. What do you think, George?
I think that's solid advice. I'll throw it to George. Let me weigh in there. I think that's solid advice, man. You never know what could happen. So why not? George, what do you think?
Yeah, I look forward to Danny's interview with Esparza, because I had been wondering, could she quietly be the backup for New York? Because it doesn't look like it's Joanna. Joanna's out there, jet setter. So we know it's not her, and we know it's not Esparza. So Rodriguez should publicly say, hey, I'll do it, even whether you have a contingent plan or not. I don't remember seeing any other strawweights on that fight card. So I think that's a good idea. But that fight card is probably going to determine the futures of a lot of people. I see it where if Zhang Weili wins, you got Rose Part 3, Joanna Part 2, and then Carla Esparza as options for the UFC. Whereas if Rose wins, then I think Carla's now in the pole position, and with Marina Rodriguez maybe second in line. So obviously she's probably hoping for Rose to win, although I don't think she would be able to jump over Carla Esparza. So yeah, throw that out there. Joanna Jędrzejczyk, I want you. Let's go. Let's main event a fight night. Or I'll be the backup in New York if you don't have one. But keep yourself ready for sure. That November card will determine a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I know Marina's a respectful fighter, but I hope she does call out Joanna a little bit. Maybe she can get a little under her skin and get her to come off the bench for this one, because stylistically, I like it. Otherwise, I think Yan Xiaonan might be the fight to make, but be ready to be a backup as well. Guys, I spoke with Vicente Luque this week, and he continues to remain all in on a potential fight with Nate Diaz. Now, for his part, Nate has also taken to social media to express interest in the fight as well. It's a big name for Luque, especially with Leon Edwards and Jorge Masvidal now booked. But it doesn't really make sense in terms of rankings as you're going towards the title. So what do you think, guys? Is this the fight to make, or should Luque be working for something else? Let's put 4 minutes on the clock. Danny, get us started.
I think this is the fight to make. I mean, the next best thing next to a title shot is a fight with somebody of the caliber like Nick Diaz, or maybe a Jorge Masvidal, or a Conor McGregor. I mean, the amount of exposure that'll bring to your brand is just, huge. And obviously you can turn that into follows. You can turn that into, convincing more people that you should be next, and sort of campaigning for that shot. And look, and also Leon Edwards, who's a top contender, is fighting Jorge Masvidal, another big name, and he's going to be getting a lot of exposure. I think that's the move. I think you fight big contenders, top contenders, in order to prove that you belong, in order to prove that you're one of the top dogs there and deserve to be fighting for the belt. But I think Luque has already done that. I mean, that submission win over Michael Chiesa, that, submission as well over Tyron Woodley. I mean, the streak that he's on, he's already proved that he deserves a title fight. So beating another top contender won't convince more people that he already deserves one. So in my opinion, get the big exposure fight, get your dream fight, because he loves that style as well. And look, it's a very favorable matchup for him as well, that, I'm pretty sure he'll get a win there, pretty comfortable win. So I think that's the perfect move. Diaz wants to fight in December as well. So for me, that's the fight to make.
Yeah, Nate has put himself in such an interesting position, right? Where, I mean, he said it himself, he is the real money fight. Sometimes beating him might be worth more than anybody in the rankings, no matter what the number is next to it. George, what do you think? You buy into that? Is this the one to make, or is there another fight for Luque?
I wasn't buying into it until we got the announcement that Leon Edwards versus Jorge Masvidal is good to go for December. I was going to be all clever and go off of that saying down in South America, where you hear plata or plomo, the cartels be screaming that. And I was thinking over here it should be plata or oro, meaning the gold or the money. Which is it you're interested in? Because going through Nate Diaz, I don't believe gets you closer to the gold, which eventually when you hold the belt, the money's going to come. The money's going to come your way. So I've never really been in favor of that route. However, now you're running out of names. He's not going to fight his opponent, his teammate in Burns. We know that. And this fight is now set. So, yeah, I guess time to run it with Nate Diaz. If he's interested in you, if you got one of the Diaz brothers interested in you, then it's going to be a huge fight. Get in there, but it's not normally what I would advise a fighter to do.
Look at Jorge Garcia up in here, just dropping the Spanish nuggets there. I like that. But I like that. Trying to steal some of that Danny Segura swag, man. What's going on there? You touched on it, though. Now that Edwards and Masvidal is booked, I mean, that kind of clears things up a little bit in the division, right? It kind of limits some of the options that were there. So I guess if it didn't make sense to you before, now it really makes sense. Matt, what about you? Is there any other wild card out there that we're not thinking about that makes sense, or is just clearing away the one to make?
No, there's really not any other wild card matchup out there. I mean, he's already knocked off all the other top contenders in the division right now that he would potentially face. So, I mean, if you're going to sit around, I mean, if you want to stay active, why not take the quote unquote money fight against Diaz? Like you said earlier, though, I mean, it doesn't really do anything for him in terms of rankings or anything like that. It's just a fun fight that a lot of fans will be interested in because, hey, the last name Diaz always gets people interested. No matter how many times they show up and lose, people are still going to want to see them fight. And all Nate Diaz has to do is land one punch, and he won the fight, just like he did against Leon Edwards, right? So that's all people are going to be tuning in for. And Luque, if he goes out there and taps him in the first minute or knocks him out, I mean, it's just another feather in his cap, even though it really won't do much for him in terms of the rankings. So stay busy, take a big fight against a big name, and get that win. Hey, you're waiting for the title shot after that. So why not?
Yeah, you guys have said it. I mean, listen, I think at this point, Luque has proven himself deserving of everything in the division, so ranking doesn't really matter. But maybe this would be the fight that would really get him that popularity. I don't know if he's fully over with the fans just yet. It seems like he's getting there, but maybe this would be the one that pushed him over. So I agree. It's the one to make. What do you got, George?
John, can I say one quick thing? Watch this. Joel Romero. Watch out, Danny.
Yeah, we got the Central America and South America coalition over here. There's room for both of us, George. Or should I say Jorge?
I love it. I love it. Well, guys, we've had quite a few headlines lately that have been focused on domestic violence incidents. Unfortunately, Chuck Liddell was the latest, but we've also seen guys like Luis Pena, John Jones in the news in just the past couple of weeks alone. So I'm just going to lay it out there. Do we have a domestic violence problem in our sport? And if so, what, if anything, can be done about it? George, I know it's a tough topic, but let's put 4 minutes on the clock and you can get us started.
It definitely appears so. I mean, that is 3 high-profile cases. Well, 2 of them being really high-profile, but 3 cases so close together. I would even venture to say, look, this is just a problem in society, not just in combat sports, not just in contact sports, but in life in general. And what can we do about it? I mean, this is something where I really, really spent some time on this morning because I knew it was a sensitive subject. I wanted to give it my best. I do want to throw out a number, first of all, and hopefully we can put it in at the end. 1-800-799-7233. That's the National Domestic Violence Hotline number. You know, if you know of something happening or if something's happening to you, you need to reach out. Now, look, I like what the NFL does. They have this private investigation team outside of the legal system where they also do their types of investigations, and they want to uncover everything because sometimes in the legal system, like what appears to be the cases here, misdemeanor domestic violence cases usually get pled down, and I don't know that that's the end of it. So I think that would be a good look for the UFC, not just a public statement, which I would want to see something a little bit more aggressive, more something that stands out a little bit more. But how about during fight nights or during the pay-per-views, putting something out there in terms of the UFC and what they want to do to look after victims of domestic violence. I want to see something like that from the UFC, not just a statement from the president or their PR team. I want to see something a little bit stronger because this is very, very serious. And my heart goes out to those families affected. Sometimes they'll never be the same.
Yeah, I'd like to see him do something. I mean, something is better than nothing, right? And it just feels like right now it's kind of nothing. Matt, what do you think? Is this a problem specific to our sport? And is there anything that you recommend?
I would love to see the UFC and other organizations, when these sort of things pop up, make blanket statements, like a PR release, blanket statement. We don't condone domestic violence in any way, shape, or form. You don't have to mention specifics or specific, details about cases that we're talking about here. But the fact that they're always silent when it comes to these things, it doesn't bode well, I don't think, for the UFC and other organizations, when it's like everyone in the world is talking about it, but when you go to the organization to see what they say about it officially, they have nothing to say. And I don't know if that's like kind of like a legal thing because they're independent contractors and you can't really sanction them like in a certain type of way, like whether it be a suspension or a fine or something like that. I'm not sure how those contracts and legalities are structured behind the scenes. But when it comes to it, man, at the end of the day, for an organization, especially like the UFC, who loves to compare themselves to the NFL at any given opportunity, if this same thing happened in the NFL, that player would be gone instantly. That's it. Like blanket statements out the gate, like immediately as that news hits the wire. So they don't play around with it there. And yeah, they have different things like organizations and associations there that they can fall back on and lean on and stuff like that. But man, it really sucks when these things happen and the organization itself is just silent, other than just saying, hey, we have a lot of crazy fighters that we have to deal with.
Yeah, I know there's limitations on what they can do, and that's why I always wonder what can be done. I think their hands are tied a little bit because of the employment stats. But again, just doing something, saying something would be beneficial. Danny, what can you add to it?
Yeah, I'm no lawyer, but I think a statement would go a long way. And look, I know, again, the way these contracts are structured, the fact that they're not employees and they are independent contractors, maybe you can't suspend them, maybe you can't take certain actions that way. But putting out a statement, I think that's something you should be able to do, because that's not influencing in a way, the fighter that has done that or been involved that. That's just simply saying, hey, look, we're not about this. Clearly, like we're condoning this behavior and throwing out a number just like George did in case anybody is going through something like that, and just putting it out there that is not okay. I'd love to see that, but yeah, it does not sit well when the UFC sits quiet or really any other promotion, and yet they're booking fighters to compete and whatnot, and that's just not a good look over us. So I don't know how much more I can add than that.
Yeah, guys, I think you touched on. I mean, I don't know that domestic violence is a problem only in our sport. It's a problem in society that needs to be, ended at all costs. You know what I mean? And for the UFC to do something, or all organizations just to do something, would be
Yes.
great, just to help educate against it and to try to work against it. I think would be a
John,
good thing. So
I want to add one more thing, and I apologize for doing this twice to you in one. But look at in soccer, the players that take a knee before every game. I want to see a statement like that, and then around the pitch, you'll see, "Let's end racism. Let's do it together." That's what I want to see.
it's a great example. I was thinking of the same one. So well done, George. I'd like to see something in that vein. Well, guys, looking ahead to this week, UFC Fight Night 195 features Aspen Ladd stepping on short notice to headline an event just 2 weeks after missing weight for a fight with Macy Chiasson that was ultimately scrapped. Now, we're moving up a division for this one, of course, but what are your thoughts at putting Ladd in a main event right now? Is this a bad look for the UFC, or is it the right call with Ladd clearly needing to move up a division? At least that's being done here. Let's put 4 minutes on the clock. Matt, which way do you lean?
It's wow. It's good that the UFC is, embracing the fact that she needs to move up. However, rewarding her with a main event fight immediately after missing weight and costing your opponent an opportunity to fight and earn a paycheck, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I will say that obviously she's stepping in on short notice, so maybe that kind of was the thing that got her back in the good graces with the UFC. But I just don't like the fact that, hey, you didn't fulfill your obligations, and yet we're going to reward you with another main event marquee fight. I mean, it speaks to how they view Aspen Ladd. They obviously want to see her among the top fighters in the division, and rightfully so. I mean, she's an incredible fighter. But I would have liked to see her return at 145 at a different slot here, not a main event.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be alone in that regards in public opinion. It seems that people aren't frustrated necessarily with the matchup, but seem to think that it's not right that it's a main event. That if it was a co-main or just another fight on the card, that would be okay. But as you said, because she missed weight, Macy Chiasson didn't get a chance to earn a paycheck, and that is a big deal. You're taking money out of somebody else's pocket. So I'm kind of torn on this one, to be honest with you. I mean, I see both the pros and the cons of it. But as you said, I think a lot of people are just kind of frustrated that it's a main event, which almost feels like a reward, so to speak. Danny, where do you stand on the situation?
Yeah, it's weird, right? Like you would think that Macy Chiasson would get sort of rewarded, right? I mean, she's the one that put in the work. She's the one that showed up. She's the one that was on weight. But it's kind of feels like the opposite. Now, Ladd is here getting a main event, and kind of being rewarded, even though she just missed weight. I am happy that she's fighting at 145 pounds in this one. We've seen her already. This wasn't the first time that we've seen her in sort of a tough situation regarding the weight cut. So I'd like to see what she can do at 145. Maybe she looks good. Maybe she's an improved version there, and maybe she can actually be a challenger for the title at that weight class rather than 135. So that to me is interesting. But yeah, I agree with Matt. Like, it just doesn't seem right from a merit standpoint, right? And I also like to point out from a health standpoint, like, dude, she was just looking pretty bad and shaking on the scale just 2 weeks ago. And now you're getting ready to fight. Again, these athletes are incredible. They recover quickly. But I also have some concerns about her health too.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. I'm interested to see how she looks this week and how she looks on the scale. I mean, it's just not an automatic that she's going to be 100% healthy just because she's moving up right now. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. For the record, I was told that Macy Chiasson wasn't really considered just because she wants to stay at 135, so they didn't really see a reason to have her do a one-off in the featherweight division just to go right back to bantamweight, which I kind of can understand, but I still get why people are a little bit frustrated here, even if it's the right move for Ladd overall. George, what do you think about this fight?
John, I'm glad you added that because I was wondering it, and I almost felt terrible for not investigating it myself. So the fact that we know that at least Macy was asked, that's good. But yeah, it's the timing of it most of all. We agree with her probably moving up, maybe if it's just for a fight, but the timing of it's so close, and not knowing if Macy was asked to be a part of this because, yeah, she's going to get a paycheck sooner than Macy is, and that probably doesn't sit well with a lot of fans, with Macy Chiasson. But I do want to commend Aspen Ladd. She has done this a couple times, but I really, really believe and have faith in her that her return to 135 will be different. and she took it head on. She was very professional in her statement, so I do have to give her props in that regard. But look, the UFC is also dealt a terrible hand during this pandemic in terms of them plugging and playing. Last week, we only had 9 fights. They try a lot of things, and, look, they're giving – Dumont needed an opportunity to fight as well, so they're going to make that happen. But again, it's just the look. A couple weeks after, main event, I get it.
I think people are going to be a little salty this week, and then we'll see what happens, and everybody will move past it. But at least Aspen Ladd is in the 145-pound division now. I think that's got to be the right move for her moving forward. So we'll see how the fight plays out. We guys also this week, it's Bellator 268 in Arizona, which includes the semifinals of the promotion's ongoing light heavyweight Grand Prix. Vadim Nemkov faces Julius Anglikas, and Ryan Bader faces Corey Anderson, with the winners meeting in the finals. Now, we've had some hurdles along the way in this tournament, but now that we're getting down toward the end of it, what are your overall thoughts on the success of this Grand Prix, and how do you see it playing out from here? Danny, let's put 4 minutes on the clock. You get it started.
Yeah, this tournament has been interesting, right? A lot of hiccups along the way. I don't think it's been the worst tournament Bellator has done, right? I can think of others that were perhaps not as interesting, but it's certainly not, I think, not the level of the featherweight Grand Prix. I think the featherweight Grand Prix is probably the gold standard of tournaments in Bellator. I mean, the way that thing delivered as far as action was amazing. The end result, right? It was just perfect. I mean, you couldn't have scripted anything better. But yeah, this light heavyweight one hasn't been great. We obviously missed out on Joel Romero competing, which, I mean, everybody wants to see Romero in any fight, especially in a Grand Prix. Anthony Johnson had to withdraw as well due to health issues. So 2 of the most interesting characters in that tournament, they're no longer there. So that's been kind of unfortunate. But look, I think there's still a lot of value. I'm really curious to see how Vadim Nemkov looks throughout this tournament. I really do think he's among the very best light heavyweights on the planet, obviously champion at Bellator. But look, you get through that tournament, you start beating names already like Phil Davis, right? You maybe pick up a win over Ryan Bader or Corey Anderson, whoever gets through there. I mean, you're going to be up there. So, I think regarding Vadim Nemkov, I think, there's still a lot to take away from this tournament.
I just want to see Yoel Romero compete so I can hear you say his name, Danny. That's the only reason I want to see him in there, to be honest with you. George, what do you think? Break it down. What do you think of this Grand Prix and how it goes from here?
Yeah, we definitely lost a couple beasts, just like Danny said. But, one thing I've liked about the Bellator Grand Prix, going back to feather and welter, is the champion defends along the way. So, somebody actually gets a shot to be the undisputed champion and then progress in the Grand Prix tournament. And then, of course, we have the $1 million payouts, which unfortunately the heavyweights didn't get. But I guess that's part of the struggle, and that's part of the evolution of Bellator. But, I did also want to compare it to other Grand Prix. And, the Pride Grand Prix back in the day, those were the standard, the gold standard for me. But thinking it and keeping it real, look, their opposition at the time was a UFC organization that only did like 5-6 shows a year. So there could be good spotlights on UFC pay-per-views and on these Grand Prix and the fight nights that Pride had. And so maybe that was easier for us to have a build-up and then actually watch a lot of these tournaments play out. Sometimes even 2 fights in one night, which is maybe something I would recommend Bellator take a look at, because sometimes these drag out a little. When they drag out, and now your opposition is the UFC that throws 40 or 42 shows a year, throw in PFL, bare knuckle, boxing. I mean, you just get lost in the shuffle. And please, for the love of God, no longer include a champ, because you leave that other title just standing there stale. Can't have that. Please let this be the end of it. If Ryan Bader loses, I'd love to see him defend at heavyweight. If he wins, God bless him. I'd love to see him, get in there against Nemkov. I believe that's going to be the final, by the way.
Yeah, some solid feedback there and some interesting suggestions as well. So hopefully they'll continue to evolve. Matt, how about you? What do you think of this tournament?
This tournament is meeting my expectations, but in a weird kind of way, right? Because I love these Grand Prix because there's always some sort of uncertainty, whether it be an upset in the result of a fight or what's been, more prevalent in this case, the falling out for whatever reason, whether it be an injury or a sickness or an illness. In the case of Anthony Johnson, you have injuries that can occur and you have upsets that can occur. So just the uncertainty of everything, for me, this is meeting my expectations in general, right? I still think we have fantastic matchups, and the championship of this Grand Prix can still be pretty intriguing depending on how these events play out this week. So for me, it's right on par, and I'm just here for all the chaos, and I embrace it. It's hard to be mad at it because you're still getting fantastic matchups, even though I would have loved to see Anthony Johnson get his shot, a title shot in the middle of the Grand Prix here.
I love it. You can't have a Grand Prix without a little bit of a chaos along with it, right? So that's par for the course, so to speak. But like you said, whoever comes out of this is still going to have gone through a pretty impressive run. Well, guys, it's going to be a busy weekend, of course. Like you said, you got UFC and Bellator on Saturday night. Dana White's Contender Series is in effect, of course, and plenty of things are always happening in the world of MMA. We'll talk about it all next week on Spinning Back Clique.